So a nice easy start today to the class. Close that so it doesn't bounce around. We're going to start in child's pose. So this class is called half and half. So it's kind of half relaxing and half strong. So when you come into the child's pose, if your knees are a bit tight, you can just place the block behind or the cushion, whatever you've got. And that just changes the angle to the knee, or you can bring it in front so your head doesn't have so far to travel down to the floor. And you can just take the knees a comfortable distance apart. And we're going to allow ourselves to breathe. So if the knees are a little bit further apart, it's less congested for the diaphragm. It just feels a bit more natural to breathe. And place the hands wherever it feels nice to do so. We will be stretching out the shoulders a lot more today. But in this first instance, we just want to settle. Get ourselves used to the idea of being on the mat. Slowing the breath down, maybe closing the eyes. So we're going to lift slowly out of that. And just take the blocks, cushions, whatever we've got to the side. We'll come up onto all fours. Spread the fingers out a little bit. And just get used to taking some weight through the wrists. So just kind of wriggling a little bit, just swaying from side to side. Getting used to the spine being in this orientation. And then we're going to start cat-cow. So we'll draw the chest forwards a little bit, roll the shoulders back a little bit, and turn the tailbone up towards the sky. The belly's drawn in just a fraction, and then we tilt the pelvis and let that ripple through the spine. Press into the floor with the hands, let the head drop, draw the belly in tight, and press into the shins just a fraction. Inhale forwards. Let the chest lift again. So the heart and the eyes follow each other, so we avoid pulling into the neck. Your movements might be faster or slower than mine, not a problem. It's about getting a sensation that feels nice in the spine. This might well be the first true stretch of the morning for you, even though you might have been up for a number of hours. And then we're going to take it into something a little stronger. It's called the Superman pose. So again, you just want to make sure that the shoulders are moving away from the ears towards the tailbone a little bit. We'll tuck the toe on the right foot underneath and slide the foot straight down the line of the mat. Make sure the head is in line with the body. We push away from the floor a little bit with the hands, and then draw the belly in as you press down into your left shin and let your right leg lift gently away from the floor. So we're going to hold this for a few breaths. The toes are pointing down towards the floor and we're lengthening out through the heels so the leg is nice and straight. And then we'll take the left hand away and lengthen that out so the palm faces in And we try and have the hand directly in front of the shoulder. So the foot is directly in line with the hip, and the hand is directly in line with the shoulder. So everything looks like we're following a nice line. And then we'll bring everything back down to the floor nice and gently, and we'll swap over to the second side. So we'll tuck the toes underneath, slide the leg out, press away from the floor, get the head in the right position, slowly lift the leg away from the ground, press into the shin a little bit that's supporting us. It's amazing how heavy those legs can feel. It's a good job we're only doing one at a time. We'll take the right hand away, lengthen that out again. And we'll release and come back down. We're going to take the knees a little further apart this time. Use as much mat as we can and sit down onto the heels. So we're going to come down into child's pose, but this time we're going to take the hands out as far forward as we can, in line with the shoulders. Let the body come down. Get the elbows onto the floor, and then bend the elbows, bring the hands into prayer behind the back of the head. And then continue to walk the elbows as far forward as you can. So you feel this big stretch underneath the arms. The elbows are about shoulder distance apart. Head rests on the floor. And then we bring the hands back to the floor, and we'll come back up onto all fours again. So we're going to tuck the toes of the right foot underneath yet again and slide that foot back. Allow ourselves to draw the right foot off the floor. We'll take the left hand away and lengthen it out. And then we're going to draw the right knee in towards the chest, around the spine, and let the right hand come back towards the hip. And then we'll lengthen out in the same starting position. Draw everything back in. And extend out. So taking our time, making it slow and strong. And then we'll bring the hands back down to the floor and the foot. Take a moment to breathe. Set ourselves up for the second side. So tuck the toes underneath, lengthen the leg away, lift. Press away from the floor a little bit as you take your right hand out. And then on the exhale, draw it all in. That's the squeeze. Knee to nose is what we're aiming for. Maybe not touching, but it's in that direction. Last squeeze in. And lengthen it out, and then bring everything back to the floor. So we're going to come right down onto our bellies this time. Have the feet about a few inches apart. So the toes can kind of turn in and the heels roll out a little bit. And we're going to take the hands forwards as far as we can. We're going to have thumb next to thumb, palms facing down. So again, I'm feeling that big stretch around the shoulders and underneath the armpits. I'm going to take a little breath here. I'm going to use the fingertips to start to walk the hands over to the right side and let the body come into a side bend whilst I'm lying flat to the floor. So you go around as far as you can. You'll get to a point where all of a sudden you go, oh, I can't move any further. And that's fine. The hands are still directly above the head. And then we'll lift and just use the fingertips to walk ourselves around through the center line, just lining the body up again. And then we'll start to take the body and the hands over to the opposite side as far as we can. And it doesn't matter if you go a little further on one side than you do on the other, not a problem. Try and keep the hands directly above the head. So this is a nice way of doing a side bend without actually having to worry about ever falling over or fighting with balance issues. And gravity is a little bit kinder in the spine in this direction. Seems to work for us. So it's a nice way to open the muscles up down to the side of the spine, especially into the lower back. And we'll use the fingers to walk ourselves back very gently into the center line. We take our time, no rush. The reason that we take our time is we want the nervous system to be able to settle as we move. We'll take a little breath from here and then bring the hands back towards the bottom of the ribs. Roll the shoulders back a little bit. Now you're going to draw the belly in just a fraction, tuck the toes underneath, and as you exhale, press into the floor to lift yourself back up onto all fours. And we'll come towards the front of the mat with our fingers, so we'll walk along a little bit. Tuck the toes underneath. Lift those knees away from the ground and lift ourselves up gently into down dog. So this first down dog, you can walk the legs out if that feels good. You can bend the knees a lot, which brings you a little closer to the ground, but means that you get a nicer line between the hips, shoulders, and the hands. It feels like it's lengthening out those parts of the body more easily. We'll be working on the hamstrings later, so that's not a problem. If you want to be a little bit more fluid, if you're watching this another day or another time of the day, you might be a little bit more mobile. You might want to take some three-legged dog scissors to the sky. And we'll take a little breath from there and come back in to plank. Roll over the toes, let the knees come to the floor. Sit back onto the heels, let the head come to the ground. Inhale back up, gently onto all fours. Roll the shoulders back, tuck the toes underneath, and lift the knees away from the ground and press yourself back up into your down dog. Come forwards into your plank. Roll over the toes. Let the knees come to the floor. Head comes to the ground, elbows come to the ground. Lift up gently. Roll the shoulders back, so we're always using the strength of the shoulder girdle to support the lift. Come forwards again. Rolling over the toes and back down. Now this time we'll come up onto all fours. I'm going to draw the right foot through between the hands. So fingers and toes line up. We'll check the front knee is over the ankle, and then we're just going to tap the toe on the back foot underneath and slide that leg out as far as we can. So getting that leg nice and straight. pretty much resting my body on the front thigh, to be honest. Now I'm going to let the back knee down to the floor gently and untuck the toes. Bring the hands up onto the front thigh. Draw the tailbone down towards the floor to help lift us up slowly. And we're just going to come up to the position where we've got the hands on the front thigh. Stay there for a few seconds. Breathe in nice and long. And then we'll draw ourselves back onto all fours. Morning, Ro. And then from that position, we'll take the left leg through. Tuck the toes on the back foot underneath. Slide that foot back as far as we can. Again, and pretty much resting on that front thigh. Hands are to the floor. So the leg needs to be off to the side a little bit to give you some space. And then once you've got yourself arranged nicely, you can lengthen the crown of the head out a little bit as well. And then we'll drop that back knee down to the floor, untuck the toes. Bring the hands onto the front thigh to lift, draw the tailbone down again. And we'll just be in this position. So we're going to use the hands to help a little bit. Draw the chest up, belly in, and the tailbone down. So it feels like it's literally being pulled. It takes the compression out of the lower back. That's what we're looking to do. Now, having the back leg as far back as we can just opens up this front hip flexor. That's the top of the thigh into the hip. And then we'll bring the hands back down to the floor. And we'll step back into down dog. Now, I'm going to allow the feet to come out as wide as the mat, or at least as wide as feels comfortable to do so in down dog. And then I'm going to turn the heels in very slightly, just maybe 20 degrees or something like that. And walk the hands back. And as I do, I'm going to lower the bottom into a squat. So that's why the knees and the toes are bending out to the side. You take a little breath from there. Let the body sink down through the gap that I've made between the legs. And then roll the spine gently back up as I exhale, drawing the belly in and letting the legs do the work. Turn the toes back into the center and bring the feet into about hip distance apart. Draw the hands up towards the sky as I breathe in and then back in towards the heart. Going to hinge over with a flat back, taking the weight into the toes and softening the knees. Drawing the belly in deep. Fingers finally come to the floor. Fold the ribs onto the thighs. And then I walk the fingers back towards the front of the mat. So back into my down dog. You can take a little breath from there. Take the feet wide again, just as we did before. Turn the heels in that little bit. Walk the fingers back. Allow the knees to bend. Sit down nice and deep. Make space and drop in. Take a breath. Roll back out again. Zigzag the toes back in. Hip distance apart. Hands up to the sky. Into the heart. Hinging down. So this will feel familiar because we've just done it. Hands to the floor, folded in, ribs to the thighs, and then walk the fingers up to the front of the mat. Back into our down dog. Take the feet out wide again. Turn the heels in, walk the fingers back. Heels come to the ground, we squat down nice. Sink into that big gap, maybe a little lower this time, and exhale. Roll it out. Zigzag the feet in, hands towards the sky. And this time, we're just going to bring the hands in towards the heart and then shake it out a little bit as we walk up to the front of the mat. We're going to have the feet about hip distance apart. Allow ourselves to take the hands up towards the sky. Bring them hands into the heart, hinge over the hips. Nice and long. Hold in as deep as we can. Taking the right foot to the back of the mat. Now, once we've done that, we're going to drop that knee to the floor. Walk the fingers back a little bit so that now this rear thigh is more vertical. And as I do that, I'll slide the left foot all the way to the back of the mat. I'm going to pivot on my right knee and let the foot go out to the side a little bit and bring my right hand in just a little so it's more in line with that leg, and then drop the left heel onto the floor so the sole of the foot comes to the floor, and I move gently into a side plank with the knee on the ground. Now, if that feels okay and you feel steady enough, you're going to take a breath, draw the belly in, and lift up onto your fingertips. So you literally have to kind of throw yourself a little bit towards the sky, and it activates the core muscles more. You press the back foot down into the floor so that stays nice and flat. And you do your best to lift your body up out of those fingertips because they're not really going to want to take the whole weight of your body. And gradually, over a few breaths, you'll start to feel this side of your body working nicely to hold you up, which is what we're looking for. Now we'll bring the hands back down to the ground. Come back into all fours. Bring the legs back in. Going to keep the bottom high and bend the elbows back and let the chest come between the hands. Chin's on the ground, and then we slide the feet away so we come down onto our bellies and untuck the toes. Bring the hands down towards the bottom of the ribs so the elbows are to the sky. We'll squeeze the shoulder blades in a little bit. I'm going to press the thighs into the floor as we inhale and lift the chest. Now we're not actually pressing into the hands, we're squeezing the shoulder blades together and the elbows closer, and then rolling back down. Inhale up, a little squeeze in the shoulder blade department. Exhale down, inhale up, and exhale. You feel those lovely lower back muscles working as well as the upper back muscles. Again, try not to pull with the neck too much. And then last little lift. Now the hands are in the perfect place to lift from, so we just tuck the toes underneath, push away from the floor, bring the knees back under, take the fingers up towards the front of the mat. You can lean into that a little bit, tuck toes, and then come back into that down dog. Easy as that. Now you remember that we've got two legs. So we're going to have to come into the second side. I draw the right knee into the chest first of all as we breathe in. Bring the foot through between the hands. Use the hands to join it up there if you need to. Into the lunge again. Take a little press off the back toes into the forward fold. Fold it in nice and deep. Hands onto the hips. Soften the knees and a flat back to lift up. We'll take the hands high. Bring the hands into the heart. Fold down again gently. So over the thighs, weights in the toes. That's how you know your weight's in the thighs. We'll take the left foot back this time. Nice big stretch to the back of the mat. Take a little breath. Walk ourselves back so that back leg gets more vertical. And then slide the right foot to the back of the mat. Drop the heel in. Left hand comes a little more in line with the left knee, and we spin the left foot off to the side so we can take the right hand up. We check that we feel happy with our balance, so we need to have our legs and hips and our shoulders and our hands more or less in line. And then if you feel good, you take a breath in, and on the exhale, press away from the floor to lift up onto the fingertips and keep lifting with that top hand. You press into the extend your foot out to the end of the mat. So it takes a little time for sort of the muscles to understand where you're trying to press them. where you're trying to take the weight. Now, for me, that back foot takes a little bit of encouragement and connection with the mind. To go, yeah, okay, I can feel that pressing down now. I've got it. Okay, I'm going to come back down, bring everything to the floor, knees come in. Let ourselves come up to the front of the mat, keep the bum high, chin between chest, slide the feet back, bring the hands to the bottom of the ribs, squeeze the shoulder blades, thighs squeeze down as we inhale up, exhale on the way down. And as I said before, we're not pressing into the hands, nor are we pulling on the neck. Just letting the muscles in the spine lift us up. And one more lift. And then keeping those elbows and shoulders back, press into the floor. Bring the knees forward a little bit. Bring the hands to the front of the mat. You lean forwards again, so shoulders over the wrists. And you can lift up into your down dog and just adjust the feet back in to where you need them to be. We'll draw that left leg in. Bring that through for the lunge. On the fingertips, the chest lifts just a little bit. Take a breath. Press on the toes into the forward fold. And then fold in nice and deep. Bring the hands onto the hips. And we lift up with soft knees. Shake it all out. So this is where the bricks come in useful, or blocks if you've got them. So you need to have at least one by the side of your mat. And we're going to come up to the front edge of the mat. Just bring the hands in towards the heart. Turn to the right. Take the legs out nice and wide. Oops, lost my balance completely. That's unusual. So don't do that bit. You don't have to fall over. We'll edit that bit out later, don't worry. See, 20 years of practice, still can't get it right. Allow yourself to take the hands out nice and wide. Take a little breath. Now we're going to turn both feet towards the front of the mat. So you kind of lift the back heel and spin it out. And you pivot on the front heel and turn the foot forwards. And you sink into that front knee until it feels like it's over your ankle. Now you want to keep these two hip bones the same distance from the floor. So we know that we're not leaning into this. We want to kind of get this guy into a neutral position. And then we'll look through the middle finger on the front hand. And check your front knee out of your peripheral vision is actually over the top of your ankle rather than collapsing in to the side. Let's take a little breath from here. Now we're going to turn the hips and lift this hip up, drop the other hip down, lengthen forwards until it feels like the body's got that nice natural line between the shoulders, the hips, and the back foot. Bring the forearm onto the front thigh and lift the top arm up. So we're turning the chest to the long side. We're actually trying to draw this rib around and under and up towards the sky. Okay, we're going back into our warrior two. So we lift up, take the hands high, rotate the body towards the front of the mat. We'll spin the back heel up and then ease the hands down to the floor. So you come into the lunge, take a little breath and step your foot forwards, drop the ribs into the thighs and then bring your hands onto the hips and lift up. So we'll do that to the second side. I'll try not to fall over this time. There we are. That was better. Take the hands out nice and wide. And then we turn both feet towards the front of the mat. Sink into that front knee, again feeling the pelvis, staying in neutral position. So the back foot presses down. All the muscles in this back leg, they're going to feel like they're firing up and lifting. And check your front knee position, so it's straight over the ankle. And then we're going to lift that back hip up, drop into the front hip, lengthen forwards, forearm onto the thigh, open the chest and lift up. Roll the rib cage round. So you're not really pulling on the shoulder, you're rolling the rib cage round and letting the chest open up to the side. The hand is just out to the side of the body really, which is accessible to everybody. The feeling of tightness in that top shoulder should be from reaching the fingers up towards the sky rather than anything else. And then we'll lift back out of there into our warrior two. We'll take the hands high, roll around slowly, spin the heel up towards the sky, lengthen forwards, bring the hands to the floor, take a little breath in your lunge, step it through to the front of the mat. Sink in deep to those thighs, bring the hands onto the hip, bring your block in a little bit closer, and then lift ourselves up. So we're going to take a spin out to the right, and we've got the block out in front of us as well. And we'll take the hands out wide again. Just as we did before, we'll turn the feet, front of the mat, and then we'll sink into the front knee. Now you want to make sure that your front foot is really pointing forwards, because we're going to come into triangle pose, and if your foot isn't, then it's easy to fall out. We're going to lengthen forwards just as we did before, but once you get to that point, you're going to start to straighten the front leg, bring the hand down, bring that block underneath the shoulder, and allow ourselves to take the top hand up towards the sky. So we want to be able to press down on that block. If you don't have a block, then you bring your hand quite high up the shin towards the knee. Now to stop yourself pressing into the back of the knee, you press into the big toe and the ball joints of your front foot. All the muscles in the legs will lengthen and lift, and that protects the back of the knee. Also stretch out your hamstring nicely, engage all your hip muscles. And we try and lengthen the body out of the pelvis. So we're trying to draw the crown of the head a little towards the front of the mat. Now we'll soften the front knee again to bring ourselves back up into our warrior two. Take a little breath. Let the hands come down. We'll straighten that front leg again and turn the toes in towards the center. We'll take a little breath, soften the knees, and allow ourselves to move that block to the other end of the mat. We'll take the hands out nice and wide. This time we're turning the toes towards the back of the mat and sinking into our warrior two. Check your front foot is pointing in the direction you want. Be surprised how much just like a fraction of an inch makes a difference. You'll lengthen out over that thigh. As you bring your hand down, you scoop your brick up and start to straighten the front leg. Take the top hand towards the sky. Just like we emphasized before, we're trying to draw this rib cage around and up towards the sky. So as we lengthen this top arm up towards the ceiling, it's really easy in the shoulder. Try and keep the head more or less in line with where the spine is, so rather than dropping it to the floor. Remember what we said about pressing, really great emphasis into the front of the foot. Trying to get those toes to really bury themselves into the floor. Without sort of gripping onto the floor, we're actually pressing the ground away. It's a slightly different feeling. And we'll soften the front knee again. Bring ourselves back up. Straighten the front leg, turn the toes in, probably knock the block over, let the hands come down again. Soften the knees a little bit. And then we'll just move that block out of the way towards the front of the mat. Keep it nice and tidy. Now, whilst we're at the front of the mat, bring the fingers to the floor, come into a little plank for a moment, and then sit back down onto the heels. Now, I'm going to take the block towards the heels. So it's quite a long way back. I'll bring the knees together so they touch, and the feet are deliberately as wide or wider than the hips. And then I'm going to sit back into what's called hero's pose. So I'm going to take my sitting bones down onto the block, nice and gently. Creaky old knees going on there. You might have been able to hear them. Now you can use more than one block if you need to. You can be as high as you need to be in this. These should feel like they're stretching, these kneecaps, rather than feeling like they're being ripped apart. So if your eyes are watering, then you definitely need to be a little bit higher. It takes a while for the calf muscles to soften off, and we're opening up the ankle ligaments here with the toes pointing backwards directly, and we sit up nice and tall. Assuming that you're in a relatively comfortable position, we can take the arms out nice and wide, and then we'll bring this right arm across the chest and lock the left arm underneath the back of the tricep and draw the shoulder around a little more. It's called a surface stretch. So you've probably seen people on their surfboards out at sea when they get a bit bored and they stretch their shoulders out like this. So if you want to imagine you're on your surfboard somewhere nice and sunny and some nice warm water, maybe that will help. And then we'll release. And we're going to bring the hands back to the floor and use the fingers to press into the ground to lift up. We'll move that block out of the way, just to the side. Now, I'm going to bring the heels together again, bring the hands forwards, and then take the knees gently out as wide as the mat. So we've got this wide version of child's pose, seated position. I'm going to take the hands forwards far enough so it feels like my body is about a 45-degree angle-ish. Sorry, no one's going to check up later. We're going to take the left hand away from the floor and slide that underneath and out towards the right side of the mat. So I'm starting to twist the body, and I'm going to let my shoulder and my ear slide down towards the floor, and then walk the right hand as far forward as I can. Now, that might feel like it's a fairly unusual position to be in. I suspect you don't spend many hours in the office sitting like this. So if that feels enough, then stay there. But if you want to rotate a little further, the way we open the chest up even more to the right side is by walking the right hand over towards the left side of the mat. And if you keep the arms straight, you'll notice that it slightly opens up your chest to the right side of the mat. It certainly is a big twist. Great for the shoulders and neck. Really stretches them out. Wrings out the spine as well. A bit like a sponge. Give it a good squeeze, and then we can let the clean stuff back in. Got a few more breaths here. Try making a bit of space to breathe into. And then we'll start to walk that right hand back, and walk the hand in, press into the floor, and lift ourselves up easily. So we come back into that, more or less 45-degree angle that we started with, and we'll take the right hand and fold that underneath. Now it's up to you whether you have the palm up or down. It is more of a sort of a comfort thing. You want to come down nice and slowly, aiming for the center line. And then when you're ready, you'll walk your left hand out this case and see how that feels. Now you might feel that it's easier to breathe and move into one side than the other. So take advantage of that rather than doing the same thing on both sides. And we'll take a little breath. And then if you feel good, you're going to walk the left hand over to the right side of the mat. You can hear the rain drumming on the window, so that sounds like the nice sunny days disappeared. Roll that chest round to the side. Feel a big stretch in the shoulder blades, around the deltoids, through the spine. And we'll start to walk ourselves back out. Bring the hand back in. Press into the floor as we exhale. And let ourselves gently unravel. Feels good. I'm going to take the flat block again. And allow myself to sit on that this time. Taking the legs slowly out in front. Now from a child's pose to legs out in front, you might find your knees are a little bit stiff. It's just where the blood flow stopped. So if you give them a little bit of a rub and give them a little bit of chance to stretch out naturally and slowly, then that sticky feeling will disappear, hopefully. So when you feel ready, I'm going to bring the feet together on the center line, sitting up nice and tall. And we're going to take the left foot and bring that underneath and out towards the right hip. So we want the left knee pointed forwards directly. And then we'll cross the right leg over, bring the foot in, have the knee nice and high. Take the left hand up. Can't believe how heavy that rain is against the wind. And then bring it across. So we're turning to the right side. We take the right hand in line with the hip, rather than trying to draw it towards the back behind us. We're actually just taking it out to the side, and then it's much easier for the chest and the shoulder to open up. All I can say is I'm really pleased that I'm not outside at the moment. That sounds a bit harsh out there. Definitely hailstones. Okay, I'm going to release from there. That's enough of the weather report. And we'll take it into the second side. So lifting that right arm up, roll around, arm and a leg work with each other for us. And then we can release from there and come back. Now we're going to bring both feet in towards the body, and so the soles of the feet come together, and we'll bring the heels in as close as we can whilst we sit up tall, and we'll let the knees hang out. Now I'm able to take my middle finger and index finger around the big toe, and then draw the chest up a little bit, press the little toes down into the floor. And that combination of lifting the chest and pressing the little toes down to the floor actually helps my knees go down towards the ground a little closer. And I got a relatively flat, long back. You might need to have your feet further away, in which case holding onto the toes might not be possible, in which case you can just hold on to the shins, not a problem. Press the sitting bones down, little toes press down. You'll feel the belly drawing. That kind of activates naturally just by the fact that you're moving your body in two directions. Roll the shoulders back a little bit, sink away from the ears. It's good Baddha Konasana, cobbler's pose. Now we'll release from here as well, and just use the hands to scoop up the legs, and we'll take them out in front again, down the center line so the toes and heels are touching, and then we'll draw the right heel in towards the groin and let the knee come out to the side. Turn the body so we're fully forwards facing, put a little slight bend into the front knee, flex the foot back, lift the body up, roll the shoulders away from the ears, and then fold the pelvis over the thighs, and then let the body sink down slowly and naturally, and then last the head comes down. So if you take your head down first, then you really have lost all the space you could have made in the body. Hands are just going to stay on the shin or down towards the ankle. Got a nice healthy bend in the front knee, so the chest and the ribs got a little bit more chance of getting closer to the thigh. There's no pulling going on, just trying to lengthen the chest forwards and letting it sink with gravity. I'll take one more breath here. Use the hands to press slowly back up as I exhale. And then I'll swap over to the other side. So just bringing that left heel in, turning the body, making sure the foot in the front is up towards the sky. Flexing the front leg, get length in the spine, lay the pelvis over the thigh into it, and then let the body follow. And then last of all, let the head ease down. So you should feel a really nice big juicy stretch in the back of your leg and a bit of a stretch in your spine, especially your lower back. And press the hands back into the floor on the exhale to lift up. Cool. We'll slide off of the block. Going to take it all the way to the back of the mat. Have the feet come out in front, and then just use the hands to support on the way down, so I can roll down gently. And you can roll onto the side of the body completely. If it feels like that isn't great for your shoulders, the back of your neck. Yeah, make sure that the block or whatever you've got underneath the back of the head is just under the back of the head and not pressing into the neck or the shoulders. You want to adjust your waistband out a little bit if you're feeling that's digging into the floor. Get yourself into a nice comfy position as you lengthen the spine out. Now we're wriggling the feet in towards the center line of the mat, having the legs in nice and close, and we're going to draw the right knee into the chest and just hook the hands under the back of the thigh, interlace the fingers, and then slowly lengthen that right leg up towards the sky, pressing out through the heel, flexing the toe. And we're going to see if we can slowly lengthen the left heel down the center line of the mat and get that to feel like it's a 90-degree angle, and press out through both heels, so flexing both feet. And then we release. Bring both feet back in, close to the bottom again, and we'll take the second side. So this should feel like a nice stretch. Lengthen that leg out. It's quite strong through the fingers and the shoulders. And then we'll slide that right leg out as well. Flexing both feet so toes come towards the body, heels lengthen away. And then we'll release and bring everything back. We can take the arms out nice and wide. And we'll shimmy the hips over towards the left a little bit and let the knees roll down to the right. Try to keep the shoulders on the ground. Going to take my right hand and just place it on top of the top thigh. Now, if that feels good, you can stay there. Or if you wish to, you can start to draw that top leg in even closer. Slide your hand down the shin. Find your big toe. Hook your middle finger and index finger around that. And then lengthen the leg out to the side. And away. So one knee is bent. And one leg is lengthening out. And then we'll slowly bring that foot back in and that leg back in. So both legs are pretty much in the same place. And we'll roll carefully back up. Hips come back into the center. We have a little wriggle. Make sure everything feels like it's in the space it should be in. We can move the hips over towards the right and let the legs come over to the left. And then we take that left hand and just place it on top of the left thigh. And try and keep the shoulders on the ground. We'll stay here for a few breaths. Just letting the stretch develop into the body. And then if you feel comfortable enough, you're going to start to draw that top leg in a little closer into the body. Slide your hand down the shin. Find your fingers around your big toe. And then lengthen the leg out. Nice and gently. straightish leg. Foot is a touch flexed. Shoulders are still on the floor. And we'll bend the knee again. Bring that foot back to the same position. Both legs come up towards the ceiling again, nice and slowly. And then we're in the perfect place for our Shavasana. So you could put an extra layer on if you're a bit chilly on the floor. And then sliding the feet out to the corner edges of the mat, just taking the hands out to the side, and a healthy amount of wriggling to lengthen the body out. And let the eyes close. Soften the jaw, let the legs roll open, let the hands roll open, let the shoulders sink, and just breathe. Now we'll begin to stretch the fingers and toes and let the wrists and the ankles wriggle around a little bit. Take a slightly bigger couple of breaths. And use that energy to stretch out in any way that feels good. And slide the heels back in. And just take a little rock from side to side, or stir the knees in the air, or just take a little hug, whatever feels good in your body. And then when you're ready, as an exhale takes place, you roll onto your right side. You take a breath down at the bottom. And then on the exhale, you use the hands to press back out and lift up into a nice seated posture. Bring the hands in towards our heart as we take the breath in. Let the eyes close and let the chin drop. Bow down to the floor to seal the practice. Inhale, let the head rise, eyes open. Namaste. Thank you very much for joining me. Hope you enjoyed it. And see you again soon.